Third stimulus check and third stimulus package. It's Biden's stimulus. And going into these Georgia races tonight, Biden says that you're not going to get a $2,000 stimulus check if the Democrats don't win the Senate. Not particularly true. But what will be true is that Biden's stimulus, third stimulus check and third stimulus package, the big robust items will get narrowly tailored. You're not going to see a $50,000 grant anytime soon, a $10,000 grant anytime soon, but you'll see the SSI, SSDI, the FPC Retro, the EIDL grant, the Lifeline grant, all these great things you'll see, just how big and how much. In this breaking news report, I'm going to go over all the deal items, whether the Senate goes blue or the Senate goes red. What are you going to get, how much, and how is tonight going to determine that amount? This is a breaking development across the board, and this is third stimulus check and third stimulus package. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's third stimulus check and third stimulus package. Thank you for joining me on Afternoons LA, the big day in which the two Georgia Senate races will determine the balance of power, but ultimately determine how much stimulus you get under third stimulus check and third stimulus package. Make sure you subscribe to this channel because I will be going taped and live throughout the day. As election results are coming in, I will go live as we see some details. I don't want you to miss a recording by the minute. Also, hit the alert button so you get alert when a new video is going live. Also, like this video. In this video, I'll go over third stimulus check and third stimulus package, where the amounts will land based upon the results of tonight. And ultimately, we may not see the results formulated or certified for 24 to 48 hours if it's a close race. But you and I already can figure out how much stimulus you'll see under third stimulus check and third stimulus package. It's all really great news, and let's get to it right now. This is the breaking news. The breaking news is that Joe Biden's claim that if you don't vote Democrat today, you're not going to get a stimulus check ever again from these Republicans is just not true. All four candidates say they're going to give you a $2,000 stimulus check after this election is finalized today or tomorrow, the day after. How soon would you see it? You see it next week. You would literally see it next week. They go back into Washington. They introduce the bill. It land on the president's desk. It could be done by this weekend, and the check could go out next week. That's Cash Act. That's not third stimulus. It's Cash Act. The big question is third stimulus. Joe Biden over the last week has talked about massive amounts of spending. First, $9 trillion for highways, then $7 trillion for schools. But when it comes to his third stimulus check and third stimulus package, he hasn't given us a dollar amount, but he has given us details on the individual items. So in this recording, I want to go through each of the items, how much you would get and how much you would not get, whether the Senate is blue or red. All right, let's get to it. First, SSI and SSDI, Social Security Railroad benefits, and veterans benefits. The $2,400 that a lot of viewers have been wondering about. My answer for that, it's going to happen whether the Senate's blue or red. Why? Because Republicans have been vowing for years to fix these benefits. In fact, they've introduced more standalone bills than even the Democrats. They've had a lot of standalone bills in 2020 last year to fix this, just like Joe Biden. So the $2,400 is not really a Democratic platform. It's a bipartisan platform. How much is this? $200 a month. Every month from January to December, plus a lifetime upgrade of about 20% because the benefits have been too low along the way, and a new benchmark that would tie your benefits to something other than COLA. Unusual? Not to be impacted by today's results? No, I don't see it at all being impacted by today's results. I think it's going to happen one way or the other. That's really good news. What else is going to happen? You're going to see more SNAP benefits. You're going to see more food benefits. And you're going to see more rent benefits. And you're going to see more utility benefits. Free rent, free utilities, and free food. Going to be impacted by today's results? Nope, not going to be impacted either. That is also a nonpartisan issue. Rent, food, utilities, things like that are nonpartisan issues. Basically, what will change in the third stimulus package is how it's paid out. Lord, the second stimulus package's way of paying out the rent, I don't particularly like. The money's going to go to the states, and then the states are going to give the money to the city, and then you have to apply at the city. It's purple. It's cash CARES Act 1 money. That's not going to happen under the third stimulus package with Joe Biden. It's going to be a federal agency like HUD. You send your lease, you get the rent, you get approved, and the rent gets paid. Happen with Republican Senate? Absolutely. Happen with Democratic Senate? Absolutely. It's not a partisan issue. So where does the partisanship start? It doesn't start at EIDL grant either. EIDL is a very Republican-ish type platform. It was backed by Marco Rubio. It was backed by a lot of Republicans. The problems we had with EIDL in 2020, which birthed Jovita LALATE, was not the result of Republicans. It was a result of a Republican nominee to be head of SBA, Jovita Carranza. She was singly, with Kimberly Butler, which became the patron saints of the comedy of this channel at the time, became the single most reason why you did not get the correct EIDL, not the Republicans. In fact, bipartisan letters sent to SBA to get you the EIDL were sent by bipartisan leaders. So under Biden, you would get a few things for EIDL grant. One, you'll get the remainder of $10,000 EIDL grant if you got $1,000 per employee. Two, if you applied for the EIDL grant when it was open and they ran out of money, you would get the full $10,000. Three, if you got the EIDL loan when the grant was closed, like in the last few months, you would get the grant as well. All those things have nothing to do with whether the Senate's GOP or Republican. In fact, those are sort of more Republican-ish type platforms than Democrats. Another round of PPP, yeah, that's actually more Republican than Democratic. So where is the battleground? Where are the things that could get shrunk really tightly? You know what they are, but let me go over all the details and my predictions. The first big one, FPUC retroactive. It's not so much the retroactive, it's not so much the $600, it's the number of weeks. The number of weeks is the killer. Ultimately, if you're sitting back and you're a Republican in the Senate and you're looking at something that says, I'm going to give $12,000 per person for unemployment, the question is going to be, wait a second, did that person make that type of money and that we're giving them this unemployment? Why are we giving them so much money? Do they really make that type of money? I don't see Biden's FPUC retro, as he proposes it to be passed anytime if the Senate does not go Democratic. Why? If you watch Overnight's LALATE, I detailed the FPUC retro issue. It's been 20 weeks since FPUC expired, January 25th. That's 20 weeks at $600 a week, $12,000 per person. Do you think Mitch McConnell is going to give $12,000 to tens of millions of people across the country? No way. Never going to happen. This is where you're going to see the impact of a red Senate potentially. So how much would you see? Maybe they'll do retro to September. During the negotiations of the fall, Steve Mnuchin and Nancy Pelosi had retro FPUC to September. If you cut it into 10 weeks, then it's $6,000 retro instead of 20 weeks. That's sort of an example. I could certainly see FPUC retro for $5,000, $6,000, but not for $12,000 a person. FPUC going forward to $600 a week, I think that could happen. I could see that happening. I don't see there's so much difference of $300 versus $600. I don't see it's a big problem. It could also be $400. The problem solvers had $400 a week, and I don't think the viewers of this channel would really have a big issue if they got $400 a week all the way until this pandemic's over versus $300 a week or versus $600 a week. I think that would happen as well. Where else would the big changes be? Hazard pay. Hazard pay, hazard pay, hazard pay. There's a lot of problems with hazard pay, and you know what they are. But let me explain to you really the most obvious and the most compelling problems of hazard pay. The first one is the duplicative nature of hazard pay. I just described to you if you are unemployed as let's say an essential worker, and you're getting $12,000 for the last 20 weeks, well, then you turn around and say, and I'm also going to give you $10,000 for hazard pay. Wait a second. It's contradictory. Now, the way you fix it is for hazard pay, it literally says you stayed employed versus you were unemployed. So there would have to be a cancel out. Basically, the FPUC would be people who are clearly unemployed, and the hazard pay would be people who clearly were employed for those respective weeks. But then there's more problems with hazard pay. It's the eligibility. The eligibility for hazard pay is too broad. And so while I do have a problem with the $10,000 number being passed by anything from Mitch McConnell's red Senate, you know, the number of $10,000 being paid to Uber and Lyft drivers, really big problem. Here, let me give you an example. Hazard pay is calculated at $13 an hour from when the pandemic started, from January of 2020 to 60 days after the pandemic ended. And there you go. So if you're an Uber or Lyft driver and classify it under hazard pay as covered, and you can account for how many hours you worked at $13 an hour, you can get $10,000. You know how many Uber and Lyft drivers who don't get $6,000, who don't make more than $10,000 a year would get $10,000? A lot. And that's where the Republican battleground will be. Why are we paying $10,000 to Uber and Lyft drivers who don't even make $10,000 a year? Because the bill says we're going to pay $13 an hour, and they worked a lot of hours. That's the problem with the drafting language of the bill. So what do I see hazard pay happening at? Maybe $5,000, maybe $4,000, maybe $3,000. I don't see a $10,000 under a red Senate. Blue Senate, you can go to $20,000. It just can go to the sky. It literally could. What else could happen? Multiple stimulus checks? There we go. At the 10-minute mark, let me hit the multiple stimulus checks. I don't think the multiple stimulus checks is really a big battleground, actually. I see multiple stimulus checks happening with a red Senate or a blue Senate. Why? Because if the stimulus checks are not enormous sums of money and the eligibility is not enormously broad, then it's not that particularly expensive. The problem I'm having with stimulus checks lately is giving $2,000 to 3-year-olds. Suddenly, 3-year-olds, where a family may have a husband and wife who clearly need the $2,000, and suddenly they have 4 kids, we're giving $8,000 for the 4 kids per month. That's just insane money. That's $10,000 for a family per month. So in 6 months, the family could get $60,000. That's hard for a Republican Senate to digest. So how would they fix it? They could keep the stimulus checks every month, but reduce the amount for the children to $500 a month. Or they could do the children every few months or every other month. But the real one that has to get the stimulus check every month is the individuals or the married couple. They have to get the $2,000 stimulus check every month. So how many months do I see under a blue Senate versus a red Senate? Blue Senate, it could literally be every single month. Biden has not given us clarity. He said consecutive months. We don't know how many consecutive months. But under red Senate, you may see 3 checks, or you may see 4 checks. You may not see 6 checks, or you may not see 8 checks. And that's really where the impact is. Maybe less checks, less eligibility, versus Biden, more checks and more eligibility. You see how things are unfolding really quickly. And that's where the impact is across the board. EIDL, PPP, hazard pay, FPUC, all these things being impacted, but SSI and SSDI not really being impacted, nor for rent or utilities or food or those things, not being impacted there as well. There's so much that Biden can also roll out or not roll out. You know, I talked about the CDC grant and I talked about the Lifeline grant. They may simply go poof. They may go poof even if the Senate turns blue. Biden has not made very clear what parts of Nancy Pelosi's HEROES Act he wants to do again that never got passed, or whether he wants to just scrap them. Here's the problem I have. The CDC grant, duplicative of the hazard pay grant. The Lifeline grant, duplicative of the EIDL grant. So suddenly you see instruments that look like the same other instrument. And if you look even closer, the same people who qualify for one qualify for the other. So why is someone who getting $10,000 for one thing getting $50,000 for another? Bottom line is that when you look at all these things, the real likelihood is people on SSI are going to get money, whatever happens in the Senate. Everyone's going to get a few checks in 2021. How many? We don't know. And you're going to see some business money for EIDL, some PPP money, and you're going to see some FPUC fix-it money and better FPUC going forward. Finally, you're going to see hazard pay and essential worker money, because this is a big issue for Biden. It's a big issue for everyone. But you're not going to see $10, $15, $20, $30, $50,000. You'll just see tighter amount. But in a few minutes from now, we'll start to see the first election results coming out of Georgia. So join me as I go live, as I break down all the details for you and stay informed and stay focused. So make sure you go to the Funnest channel and subscribe. Make sure you hit that alert button and like this video. Coming up next is a live recording of Bean and Mitch. Purple will join us back on this programming block in a few days from now as everything from Georgia settles down. But I will need to focus more on these election results tonight, so I'll be live shortly. As always, stay in LA for more.